Hey, my friends, it's Ted McGrath. So I'm going to jump in and make a quick video today on why the price drop and then why the recovery and then what is happening with Bitcoin adoption throughout the states in the United States. And we're going to get into, again, why I'm still bullish on MicroStrategy, why I'm still bullish on Bitcoin, and also what my investment plans are present day of some new money. Again, this is not financial advice. So remember, not tax advice, not legal advice, not financial advice at all. So this is just for entertainment and educational purposes, and that is it. Okay. So number one, we saw that it's a huge dump yesterday in the markets. If you watch Bitcoin go all the way down to 92 or even below that, we watched a huge crash with Solana. Solana was up at like 280 a week and a half ago, and Solana dumped down to like the 180s recently. So we saw big price movements in cryptocurrency yesterday. And if you're watching the markets last night, you can tune into Robinhood. And on Robinhood, you can see pre-market prices on the stocks. And we saw MicroStrategy drop down to 300. And we saw it go down 10% pre-market. So we saw big price drops. And there's nerves when stuff like that happens. I get it. And you're watching all over YouTube and the internet of the tariffs and what is Trump doing. Here's my personal viewpoint on it, and basically some of the research that I saw. We see that Trump is applying tariffs and with China, with Canada, with Mexico, etc. Okay, and if you know anything about Trump's negotiation strategies, he will go in and shock people with something and take massive action, and many times that massive action of what he takes is then brought into a negotiation, where then through the negotiation, he comes to a deal with people and things are resolved. So right now, there's some recent news that Trump just did a deal with Mexico, and some agreements with Mexico to do the art of the deal and negotiate so that this whole threat of tariffs and things like that drop the prices in the markets, because number one, I think people were expecting these tariffs and these idea of tariffs to come in 30 days later. They came in earlier. The markets don't like surprises. With the surprise of Trump putting in these tariffs or saying he's going to put in these tariffs, the market doesn't like surprises. Market tanks. It reacts negatively. Of course, it could potentially affect companies in the U.S. If goods are being taxed that are being imported into the U.S., it affects American companies. The American stock market flips out, and people start selling. Cryptocurrency responds in kind, and people start selling. And so we saw a big drop down on Solana. We saw a big drop down on MicroStrategy. And if you watched MicroStrategy pre-market, we saw it at like $300 last night, right? I don't know if it teetered below 300, but we saw it at $300. Now, here's the deal, okay? I sat down last night when things like this happen, and I basically put in certain policies for my investing, all right? And when I look at my investments, I have some new money that's coming in right now. It's a substantial amount that's coming in from one of my trusts. And I'm hoping that it comes in super, super soon, because February tends to be one of the best months of the year when it comes to Bitcoin. And so if you look at the charts, November historically with Bitcoin is one of the top months. And we just saw a November soar recently. And I think February is about the third best month for Bitcoin historically. So I'm expecting to see a big month in February with Bitcoin comparatively to the other months, like the summer months that are typically dead. And I'm expecting to see a bigger month with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin has a big month, then we're going to see that MicroStrategy should have a big month as well. So what that will look like, I know historically in February, Bitcoin has done sometimes has done in the 30 percentiles. Sometimes in February, most recently in 2021, it was in the 20 percentiles. So could we have a 20% run on Bitcoin in February? It's possible. Again, not financial advice. I'm not giving you any advice to where you're going to time the markets. But when something comes in like last night, and you believe in the investment, whether it's Bitcoin or MicroStrategy long term, for me personally, I am waiting for my new money to come in so I can allocate it to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. Okay. My allocation based on what I wrote down last night is going to be about, I'm probably going to do about 50% to MicroStrategy, 40% to Bitcoin, and 10% to Tesla. All right. If you look at my current allocation strategy, it's approximately that. I got about 60% of Microstrategy, 30 something percent in Bitcoin. And then I have a percentage in Tesla and Solana. And then I have some money that I keep in cash for trading. Okay. So that's my basic strategy on it. We have things like this that happen in crypto. Even last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, we had another surprise and we saw the markets drop again and they boosted back up on a Monday. We just had another surprise. The markets dropped again and it boosted back up on Monday. This is not uncommon where shocking news or surprising news comes in that affects crypto, Bitcoin, the stock market. This is what we live through as we invest into these types of products. Okay. Am I alarmed? Am I shocked? No. Do I like to see Bitcoin drop to 92,000 like it did last night? No. Was I wishing that I had some dry powder from my trust that's going to be coming in very, very soon to buy at that moment? I so wish I had, because I would have aped in at 92,000 and it was a huge buying opportunity. So again, if you're just joining, it's the first time you're watching this channel, the majority of my investment money I put in Bitcoin in 2018. I put some in, a bunch in some in 2018. I bought my first Bitcoin. I put a lot in 2020. I put a good sizable amount in 2023 when Bitcoin was at 30,000. And that's the last time that I've purchased Bitcoin. Now I have some money that I'm taking because I have a big insurance policy. And I'm like, I no longer want to keep my cash in this insurance policy. And the reason being is because my investment philosophy has changed. Over the years, as I looked at it, I'm like, a 6 or 7% in insurance policy isn't going to cut it. When we're printing 7% more money supply every year, on average, that means if I make 6 or 7% of my insurance policy, I'm not making anything. I'm not getting ahead. So I'm reallocating all of that money and I'm putting it into Bitcoin, Microstrategy, and Tesla. So in a new unit of time, as looking at it as from a new investment standpoint, I'm looking at that as new money. And so when I look at the bull run right now, do I feel like it's too late to buy into the into Bitcoin and too late to buy into MicroStrategy? No, I don't. And obviously, I'm putting my mouth where my money is, because my large bags of MicroStrategy and Bitcoin has all been allocated from years ago. But with new money, I'm going to allocate to those same winners. And then my longer term bet on this is Tesla. I've been in Tesla since 2017. So I will continue to bet on Tesla into the future. So that's my basic plan. And, I would not be worried about the tariffs. It shocked the markets. I also believe and know that one of the ways that Trump measures his success is by the stock market. And so he's not going to do anything that's going to tank the stock market this year. And also, with him coming out with his meme coin, and also the fact that the U.S. is looking at a strategic reserve for Bitcoin and a digital stockpile, it's going to go right this year in 2025. That's my prediction. So that's why I'm going to put new money in as soon as my money comes in from my trust and my life insurance policy. And it will be sometime, I hope, within the next week, because I believe in February, we're going to have a pretty good February with Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. Okay. So that's my basic take on what's happening right now. Also, if you look at the states and basically what's happening with the legislative process on the states, I think there's 18 to 20 states now that are looking to pass a law to have a Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. You have Arizona and Utah that are the most ahead. And the way that the process works is, first somebody introduces the bill or the law, and or introduces the bill. And then it goes to a committee. And then after the committee, it goes to the House and the Senate. And so when you look at Arizona has it already in the House and the Senate process right now. And then right after the House and Senate, it'll go for a pass. Utah, the same thing. They already have it in the House and the Senate. As soon as the House and Senate approves it, then it will go to be made into a law by the governor. All right. So basically, we have two states that are like right at the finish line right now to get strategic Bitcoin reserves. And then we have another 16 or 17 states. The great majority will follow. We got how many states in the US? 50 or 52. So right now you've got almost 40% of the states applying for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I also think that that's a good thing, because it presses the hand of Trump And so now, like, the the U.S. government and the committee that was put together to create a strategic stockpile or digital stockpile is now. I'm just going to call it a strategic Bitcoin reserve because I hate the idea of a digital stockpile. I think it should all be Bitcoin, and it's like a strategic digital currency stockpile. It's like it should be a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's what it should be. Okay. So the strategic Bitcoin reserve that they're looking at, they're going to come back, and I think they're going to pass it. And I think it's political suicide for them not to. I think this administration would have complete egg on their face if they don't pass it. And I also think that they're getting pressure from the states right now to do it. Because if the states are almost passing it in Arizona and Utah, and they start passing it, it's going to put pressure and positive pressure on the government to come back and make a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the U.S. government. So that's good news as well. So anyway, the ups and downs of crypto, if you're new to crypto, this is what we deal with. This is the volatility that we deal with. I know we'd all like to see the prices moving up. I know that people are expecting prices to move up, and I know what it feels like when you're sitting in something and it goes down 10%. It gets scary. And I don't care how long you've been in Bitcoin. Like, I've been in Bitcoin for 7 years now. I don't care how long you've been in it. When you see a 11 or 12% drop in Bitcoin, if you're a veteran, you take notice and you're like, oh crap, right? But if you're brand new, you're not used to that roller coaster. It's like getting on a roller coaster ride, and all of a sudden you go up and you have this huge dip and your stomach drops. You're like, oh my God, I've not been trained for this. It's okay. Like, calm down. We all go through it. One of the reasons I do these is also to instill some confidence to go, it's okay. It's okay. We are still in a bull run. And these are the types of swings that happen in a bull run. And these very swings down are the same types of movements that also create swings up, meaning the volatility down that you experience, the goal is to also experience that volatility up. All right. So we have to expect that we're going to have this type of volatility. I like Financial Conspirator over there says volatility is vitality. Absolutely. And you've heard me say this before. If you look at MicroStrategy's volatility compared to Bitcoin, like Bitcoin's a 60 and MicroStrategy is like a 90, and the S&P is like a 15. So you're comparing S&P 14% returns average over a 30-year period. You look at Bitcoin returns, go look at their returns on Bitcoin over the last 16 years. The average is way, way higher. And then you look at MicroStrategy, 350% return in 2024, So, and Saylor has not tapped the ATM to my knowledge. I didn't see anything yet on it today. I think he's in his blackout period before the new FASB accounting rules come out. Now, let's not forget the FASB accounting rules are coming out. The Fair Accounting Standards Board is going to pass the way that they actually count Bitcoin on the balance sheet now. So instead of the way they used to count it, which was based on the cost basis, where like if you had a cost basis of 60,000 in Bitcoin, which MicroStrategy's cost basis is around an average of $60,000 per Bitcoin. But now the value of MicroStrategy's Bitcoin is, Bitcoin's at 100,000. So they're going to start accounting for the fact that they don't just have 60,000 worth of cost basis. They now have they're going to value the Bitcoin on their balance sheet based on $100,000 price point, not the average cost of what they bought it at, which is huge. So you're going to see a valuation in terms of how the accounting is kept for MicroStrategy's Bitcoin holdings. You're going to see a different viewpoint of how it's accounted for, which is a bullish sign for MicroStrategy. So that's very good. News on the preferred stock that just came out. I researched it a little bit. Based on what I have, and you might have a little bit of different knowledge on this, but I looked at it many different ways. And I'm like, me as an investor, like, why would I buy the preferred stock? My understanding of it is that they're going to pay a 10% dividend. When they did release it, there was 3x the demand for the preferred stock, which is STRK. And that when I looked at the allocation of like, when you have an option to convert that stock into common shares in the future, it converts at like a 1/10 of the stock price. So the value of like, if I were to invest $250,000 into MicroStrategy common shares, and then I would invest $250,000 in MicroStrategy Strike, which is the preferred stock, and MicroStrategy hits $1,000 price point in 2025, I'm way, 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 way better off being in the common stock than I am in the preferred stock. It's not even in the same universe. And the reason why people are looking for the preferred stock and like why it's an interesting option is because they want like more fixed returns. They want the 10% dividend that's paid out quarterly. It's 10% over a year, but it's a quarterly dividend that's paid out. And so they want the predictability of the dividend that can be paid out, quarter after quarter, year after year for perpetuity, for as long as MicroStrategy is around. Also, as a preferred stockholder, if MicroStrategy ever goes under, the preferred stockholders, get their money back first. Okay. I think it actually goes convertible. The people who did the convertible bond deals first, then it goes the people who own preferred stock, then it goes us. I'm a common shareholder. I'd be last. So if MicroStrategy ever tanks and goes out of existence as a common shareholder, I'm going to get nothing. As somebody who's a convertible bond holder, they would first get money back. Then you'd have the preferred people. Then you'd have the common people. So, and I love what Grant says. Yeah, Bitcoin's back up to 100K today. It's beautiful. This is how Bitcoin moves, Again, Trump threw out the tariff thing. Mexico, everybody's coming to the table to negotiate. Mexico's coming to the table. They already did a negotiation. This is how Trump does deals. He shocks people. Then he comes to a deal and a negotiation. America's a superpower. We have lots of power. He's throwing around the power, and he's going to get what he wants in most cases, which is going to be good for Bitcoin, in my opinion. So it's good news. And it's to me, like, is it something to be concerned about when you see a 10% swing? Yeah. But MicroStrategy also has held strong too, right? Around 330. Saylor didn't tap the ATM. And another good reason for the preferred stock, by the way, is Saylor doesn't have to tap the ATM for this. So it's another way for MicroStrategy to get money to buy Bitcoin. So now you look at MicroStrategy, they have preferred stock, and they can get money from their preferred stockholders and buy Bitcoin. They can issue common shares, which we know when they issue stock that's at the market, that's when he taps the ATM and it temporarily dilutes the shares. But as shareholders, we are okay with this long term because it gets us more Bitcoin per share. And then we also know the convertible notes, which, by the way, the convertible notes are going to be used up this year. And most of what he's done in 2024 and even the beginning of 2025 is issuing common stock. And issuing common stock, when he hits the ATM like that, the at the market, when he issues the common stock, that's when you see the dilution of the shares, and you start to see like maybe the price trade sideways or goes down temporarily because there's a temporary dilution. And sometimes the market sentiment doesn't really like it, even though long term it's good for the shareholder. But when he does it with convertible notes, where he borrows money to buy more Bitcoin, it's not impacting. It's not hitting the hitting the ATM, so to speak. So it's not a dilution of shares, which is good. So we like convertible notes as well. And then also preferred is another thing where it's not actually hitting the ATM. So it's not going to create a dilution of the shares. Okay. Those payouts of 10% dividends need to come from somewhere. So I think the dividend payouts need to come from somewhere. So there is going to be a little bit coming from, I guess, somewhere that may dilute it. You might have to pull it from the, anyway, I'm not going to get into the technical details, which I don't have full knowledge of, but somehow they're going to have to pay the preferred shareholders, and that's going to come from somewhere, right? But now we have 3 methods to raise money to buy Bitcoin, and that's a very, very, very good thing, all right? Also, because the preferred stock was so popular, 3 times more popular than we thought. It was originally supposed to be 250 million, and I think they came out with 750 million. I think it will be a strategy that he continues to do, which is very, very bullish for MicroStrategy. So overall, I'm still excited about 2025. I just wanted to come and give you that quick update and let you know that, number one, the tariff thing created a shock in the market, and it tanked down on Sunday. Now that Trump is coming to negotiations, we see a rebound in the market. Number 2, February historically for Bitcoin has been one of the best months, the 3rd best month. If you look back in the price in 2021, Bitcoin went up by 20-something% in February. If you go back to prior years, it went up by 30-something% in the bull run before that. So I'm expecting February to be a good indicator for Bitcoin and MicroStrategy and a good price increase. Not financial advice, but that's what I'm expecting. Number 3, I personally am waiting for some money to come in from my life insurance policy. I will be taking the great majority of all of that money and reallocating towards MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, and some towards Tesla. So I will be doing that with new money. So if anybody's invested recently, I will be in that game with you. But also, I've been in the game for a long time on this, since 2018. So I have a longer runway and a lot more profits. But when I invest new money, I look at it as a new batch with a completely different mindset of like, okay, great. Now I want to buy at this price. And I believe that MicroStrategy is going to go to this price. Okay. So when you've heard me talk about my bullish case for MicroStrategy being $1,000 in 2025, I'm looking at it when I do my projections for MicroStrategy. I'm looking at this new investment money from the standpoint of what happens if it hits 1,000, what happens if it goes to 700, and what happens if like it goes to its all-time high from 2024, which was about $540. Okay. I don't see a world where we don't get back to 540 since we already hit that all-time high. And here's why. Number one, in January, if you look at the ETFs, you look at Sailor, you look at the buying of Bitcoin, there were 50,000 Bitcoin purchased. If you look at the actual supply that's issued every single day of Bitcoin, it's 450 Bitcoin. So if you do the math, 450 times 30 days, it's somewhere around the neighborhood of 14,000 Bitcoin that are being issued in a month. 50,000 were purchased in January. So there's a 3x purchase, 3x demand based on the supply of issuance. Okay, supply, demand, price. So the demand, even in 2025, even at $100,000 Bitcoin, because that's what these ETFs have been buying at, the demand is still extremely high at $100,000 Bitcoin. That's number one. Number two, through every bull run, it's the funny thing, retail investors who are new to crypto, they start going, their antennas light up when you start to see a bull run, right? So when you start to see like the prices go up, as we started to see us nearing 100,000, so many of my friends were calling, hey, do you think I should get into Bitcoin? Why? Because it just ran from 60 and it ran up to like near $100,000 or hit 100,000. And when it hit 100,000, many of my friends were like, should I get into Bitcoin? Should I buy Bitcoin? Should I buy Bitcoin? So you're going to have the same retail FOMO as Bitcoin hits 120, 150. You're going to have the same retail FOMO as it's zooming up of retail FOMOing in. It happens every bull run. It's going to happen again. And you can count on the public to just FOMO in. Okay. So that I believe is going to happen as well. Third reason is not just the diminishing supply and the fact that the Bitcoin buys are still huge in terms of the quantity of Bitcoin being bought. The states, 18 or 20 states right now in the US are applying for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The US stockpile is another reason. The FASB accounting rules are being changed on how MicroStrategy is holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet and anybody else holds Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Things are changing, and things are changing in a positive way. So we have great new direction. MicroStrategy continues to innovate and come out with new products like Strike, their preferred stock, new ways to acquire cash to acquire Bitcoin. That's what they do. And Sailor's not slowing down in 2025. And to think he is, he's not slowing down. He's going to buy the top forever. We're at $100,000. He's buying and still buying. So for me, this is just me. For my new money that I'm putting in, that I sure hope my new money for my life insurance comes in super soon. When you deal with trusts and attorneys and regulations and all this stuff, it takes sometimes time to get money. That's the thing I love about crypto. Get in seconds. All these other vehicles, man, you got to deal with insurance companies and trusts and legal stuff. It's a pain in the ass. So I'm getting my money and I'm going to put it into crypto and MicroStrategy. So when my new money comes in, I will be allocating it. Now, when I look to make an investment, it's great to go with the idea of like, when should I buy? Like, if Bitcoin's at 100K today and MicroStrategy's at 330, right? So let's say I get my new money in a week, right? And MicroStrategy goes up to 380. The way that I'm making that investment, would I like to have the best price? Yes. Will I go look at my charts and do technical analysis to see, like, are the indicators coming in for a buy or for a sell? Yes. Will that be the gospel of how I make my decision? No. I will look at the charts. I will look at the signals coming in, but I will look at the future that I see of what is my overall investment plan for MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. And so my overall investment plan is, are we going to get back to an all-time high for MicroStrategy? 540, 2024. I believe that we're definitely getting back there. So even if I buy at 380 or 330 or what have you, would I love to buy at 300 in the pre-market last night when it hit 300? Yes. Even when I buy in the 300s or whatever I buy at, do I believe it's going to go back up to 540? Yeah. So if I buy at 380 or 400, 540 is like a 35% increase. You know? And I'm looking at the window of the bull run for 6 or 7 more months. So I'm looking at, wow, like even if I hit the all-time high of MicroStrategy again at 35%, would I be happy with that? Sure. Okay. Even when I buy into Bitcoin, let's say I don't get my money that's coming in for another week or 2 weeks, I'm looking at it and going, okay, great. So what if Bitcoin goes up to 110,000? Will I wait for a pullback? I'll probably ape a whole bunch in as soon as I get the money. And then if I think I'm going to see a pullback based on the technical analysis, will I wait for a little bit of pullback and put in the rest? Yeah. So will I time some of it? Yeah, but not like anally to the point like I'm waiting for the price to drop, because I don't want to miss it if we get a spike in a run, and I don't want to miss my overall consensus of what I believe is going to happen from my point of view. Is I believe the low is we're going to get an all-time high of MicroStrategy again, which was 540. I believe we're going to hit 700, maybe 800, and my bullish is over 1,000. So based on my belief, on my knowing, on my certainty, on my study of Bitcoin and being in it since 2018, based on what the analysts are saying, and we see that predictions for Bitcoin from analysts are around 180 to 190,000 on average for Bitcoin in 2025. I look at it and go, even if Bitcoin gets to 150,000, if I buy in now, am I winning in this bull run? Yeah. Will I take profits? Yes. Because again, as I'm looking at this, it's very real that we could shoot up to 150 and back down to 100. It's very real that Bitcoin could run up to 190 and run up all the way down to 100 or below 100. It's very real that MicroStrategy could run up to 540 again and back down to 280 or lower. Okay? So I will look at things, and as we approach the time where I think the bull run is coming to an end, I will analyze things and evaluate based on what's happening in 2025, because we don't know what's going to happen. If the U.S. decides that they're going to get a strategic Bitcoin reserve, if all the states start pouring in, if other countries start pouring in, if Saylor continues to buy and comes out with a new plan, he's going to shock people in 2025 and continue to come out with new things that put the PR out there, put the surprise out there, and get people more bullish. I think Saylor's personal goal, I haven't talked to him, this is just my speculation, I think his goal is like, how could I just continue to buy and buy and buy and buy so we can keep the run going through 2025 and 2026? I think that's what he's trying to do. Do I think that's real in the most likely scenario that we won't see a drop? No, I think we will see a drop. I think the most bullish we could wish for is that Saylor and the ETFs and nation states and countries just keep pouring in, and we just keep kind of staying, and Bitcoin keeps moving up, becomes a mainstream asset. That could be the most bullish scenario. Do I think it's the most likely scenario? No, not in 2025. I go based on last bull cycle and the bull cycle before that, the bull run before that. I go based on the data and based on what I've seen Bitcoin do, that Bitcoin goes all the way up and then it goes down. And so am I preparing for the worst on that? Yes. And am I going to take profits? Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Now, I know there's a lot of people that say, hey, just hold your Bitcoin. Would I probably be better off in the long run if I just held my Bitcoin? Yes. And did I hold my Bitcoin through the drop in 2021? I did. Bitcoin went up. I took some profits off Bitcoin, and then it went all the way down, and I held a good majority of Bitcoin. And then I watched it go all the way back up again. And I was like, oh, wow, it felt really good to hold that portion of Bitcoin. So will I hold a portion of my Bitcoin through the bull run and through the full of the bear? Yes. MicroStrategy, will I take a majority of profits on that? Absolutely. Because MicroStrategy is so much more volatile that even if you're used to a 70% run up on MicroStrategy, a 70% drop on Bitcoin where it goes all the way up and then a bull run it drops 70%. What do you think MicroStrategy is going to do if we have that? So in the worst case scenario, I think this year Bitcoin could run all the way up and we could have a 70% drop. That's my worst case. Okay. With the ETFs buying, with nations adopting Bitcoin, with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, with Saylor continue to buy the way that he's seeing, do I think we'll have a Bitcoin run up and a 70% drop? No. Do I think we'll have a Bitcoin run up and we could have a 40, 50% drop? Yes. I do think that's real. And if we see that with MicroStrategy, let's say MicroStrategy hit $1,000, could MicroStrategy drop back down to 300? Yeah, it could. Could we see MicroStrategy go up to 500 and drop back down to 200 in a bear or below 200? Yeah. So again, while I am still remain extremely bullish in 2025, I'm also looking 6-7 months ahead for a potential bear, and I'm planning for that, which is hence why I'm going to take profits so that I'm not caught in the bear and watching all this work that I've done, all this investing I've done to only sit there and watch it go all the way up and go down and be back to where I was, 6 months ago. Make sense? Okay. So that is the idea for the day. If you're just joining us, the recaps of reasons why to be bullish. Why did we have the drop? One, Trump shocked the world with tariffs early. People flipped out. Stock market sold. Cryptocurrency sold. Trump's going to do negotiations now with the rest of the countries that he's putting tariffs in. He just had a negotiation that he's going to do with Mexico right now. They're coming to some agreements, and all looks good. Markets rebound. Okay. That's what Trump does. Art of the deal. Number one. Number two, 18 or 20 U.S. states are now applying for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Arizona and Utah are almost passed. So I'm expecting to see Arizona and Utah pretty soon get approval for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Number three, 50,000 Bitcoin were purchased in the month of January. It's 3 times the supply that's being issued every single day. Number four, Saylor is not tapping the ATM right now because I think he's in a blackout period. He's got now the new FASB accounting rules coming in. So the Bitcoin on his balance sheet will be accounted for based on the Bitcoin price of $100,000 right now versus the Bitcoin cost basis of $60,000 is what his average cost basis is for MicroStrategy buying Bitcoin. Additionally, we have Saylor continue to buy. We have the U.S. that I totally believe is going to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We have states that are doing. We have countries that are going to be pouring in. Bullish signs all around for this year. So that's what I believe is going to happen. So I continue to remain bullish. And then finally, always giving warning that if you have not been through a bull run before, do not get caught with your pants down where literally we zoom up and you don't have an exit plan. You have to be looking at this, okay? No matter how bullish I remain, if you're brand new to crypto, this is not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice. If I was brand new and this was my first time doing this, I would absolutely 100% research what has happened historically in bull runs, because it goes all the way up and it goes all the way down. And I don't care how much you believe in Bitcoin, okay? Not one person, including Michael Saylor, enjoys living through that 70% drop. And if you even watch one of his prior videos during it, it was tough. He even talks about it, right? But he continued to remain true to his shareholders. He continued to remain true to his conviction. Doesn't mean that it's easy to remain true to your conviction, okay? Do I think he will sell? Absolutely not. Do I think MicroStrategy will sell? Absolutely not. Okay. He and them being one and the same, even though they're not. Do I think they will sell? No, I don't. Okay. Do I know what's going to happen with the ETFs? They're in it to make profits, man. So will they take profits during the bull run? I think so. I think the one person we can count on to continue to hold the Bitcoin is Michael Saylor. And so even he, as much conviction as he has, or I believe him to be the most convicted person on the face of the planet when it comes to Bitcoin, he doesn't like experiencing the 70% drop. So you should prepare yourself in this bull run for a big drop, and you should have a plan. And to do anything other than have a plan would be irresponsible, which is why I'm telling you to be prepared. Okay. Do I think a 70% drop is likely? I don't think 70% is likely. Do I think a 50% drop is more likely, or a 40%? Yes. So you have to do the research yourself, figure out what you think it's going to be, figure out when you want to take profits, what price point would it be good at? I have a whole sheet for me on like what happens if we had $1,000 MicroStrategy, What happens if we do an $800 MicroStrategy? What happens if we do a $540 MicroStrategy? What does it mean when I take profits here? And what would that mean for my financial goals? Now, I am already up hugely on MicroStrategy and hugely on Bitcoin because I bought way back, right? So I can take profits. Even right now, I can take massive profits. But I don't want to miss this incredible ride that I think we're going to be on in 2025. We're part of the way through the bull run now, more than half. We have an incredible ride, I believe, coming up. And again, do your own research. I'm just one person here with an opinion and a voice who's lived through and observed a couple bull runs and watched my portfolio go up and all the way down. And I believe that we're in for a hell of a rocket ride coming up in 2025. So I'm excited, and I've never been more excited about the space. I've never been more excited about Bitcoin, never been more excited about MicroStrategy. Do I hold both? Yes. And I hold both. Number one, because I think just the purest form of Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin is just like, it is a in-demand asset. One day there will be no Bitcoin left. We already have a supply crunch. Like, it is an in-demand asset, you know? So I want to own it. I also do it from a balancing standpoint because MicroStrategy is way more volatile than Bitcoin. And it doesn't look like it right now, but as you start to see prices run, as I think we start to see Saylor shift more to convertible notes where he's not tapping the ATM as much. Once we start to see that, I think that MicroStrategy, that's been trading at a premium all along, I think MicroStrategy's premium will go up even higher, meaning people will be willing to pay more for the stock. The stock will go up much, much higher. And we will see a bigger increase in MicroStrategy in 2025 than we will Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is if Bitcoin goes to 150,000, which would be a 50% increase from here, I think MicroStrategy will go up by 80% or 100%. Everybody tracking that? So if Bitcoin goes up by 50%, I think we'll see MicroStrategy going up by 80% or 100% over the bull run. If Bitcoin goes up and doubles, goes from 100,000 to 200,000, I think MicroStrategy won't just do a double, but will do something like a 3 to 3.5. So that's why I own MicroStrategy and I own Bitcoin. And you could call Bitcoin kind of like, for me, is more of the conservative approach for me, because Bitcoin's more of a conservative. I even have my company reserves in Bitcoin as well. So it's just kind of, for me, it's kind of like, okay, great, I'm going to take some money and bank it in Bitcoin. All right. So it's more of a conservative approach for me, which does not mean that I won't take profits. I will. And MicroStrategy will take larger profits. Okay. And then I'll look at in 2025 what I'm going to roll into. I will not sit there and roll into cash and just hold a whole bunch of cash. I am now looking for things that I'm going to allocate into and roll into in 2025. I already have some plans on that, and that's what I'll do. All right. Hope this serves you guys. And I will. When do you think it will? Oh, somebody's asking, when do I think MicroStrategy will overshoot Bitcoin? Here's the thing. I think that we already saw it in 2024. All right. So if you look at Bitcoin's returns, 121% in 2024, and MicroStrategy was like 350%. We're only in 1 month into January. Okay. Obviously, it has not overtaken Bitcoin in January. It's dropped, it's traded sideways, what have you. I think as Saylor starts to switch to more notes, convertible notes, I think as we see the Bitcoin price really like zoom up to like 120,000, and as Saylor stops hitting the ATM as much, as he starts to go more to notes, as we start to see the sentiment get even more bullish with like states going and getting strategic Bitcoin reserves, as we start to see more news about, hey, the US is close to maybe coming to an agreement on their strategic Bitcoin reserve, and they do actually do a strategic Bitcoin reserve. As all of that starts to happen, I then think the sentiment will push Bitcoin up. The bullishness will continue to spread with MicroStrategy, and more people will jump into MicroStrategy. And you also need to remember that very few people understand MicroStrategy, guys. So this is a relatively new phenomenon in the marketplace. And so with that idea that very few people understand it, like the country's just starting to understand Bitcoin, and the percentage of people in the country that actually understand Bitcoin is very small. And then the percentage that actually understand MicroStrategy is even smaller. So we're talking about a stock that is very misunderstood, even by analysts and experts. And you're going to get opinions from people out there that say, this thing's that, or Michael Saylor's doing this, and he's making a bet and he's making a gamble. Because one, if you don't understand Bitcoin, you're not going to understand MicroStrategy. So one who has no fundamental knowledge of Bitcoin, it would be impossible for them to have a understanding and knowledge of MicroStrategy. Because at its core, MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin treasure chest. So any media out there or any analysts, and beware of financial analysts that are out there saying MicroStrategy is no good, MicroStrategy is this, who don't have any knowledge of Bitcoin. So if you ever hear somebody that you respect in the marketplace, like let's say a Warren Buffett, or a Charlie Munger who said Bitcoin was rat poison, I don't think it came from the standpoint of like malicious intent really there, although there always is a possibility for that. But I do think it just came from a basic misunderstanding of the technology of Bitcoin, And so, and then if you're looking at people who like Warren Buffett, who's much older, who's also not technologically inclined, like he doesn't invest in technological companies. Apple was like a big move for Warren Buffett when he did it. So he invested in insurance companies, like very like old traditional companies. So to expect a guy whose philosophy is traditional based companies to then invest in a technology and understand the technology would be very far-fetched. So you would then expect that a person like that, who you do have traditional finance people like Warren Buffett, who are brilliant people in their space, they have a traditional view of the world. And if they're not technological and they don't understand the technology of Bitcoin, they would have a misunderstood on Bitcoin. And so if somebody has a misunderstood on what Bitcoin is, they would have no understanding whatsoever of MicroStrategy. And what do people do when they have a misunderstanding of something? If you've ever observed it, they shun it. Because one who gets a misunderstood, who doesn't understand something, right? They tend to get confused. And when they get confused, they'll get upset. And when they get upset, they start getting angry on the subject, or they get angry on the person explaining it to them. Ever be in a conversation with somebody who's explaining something, you would get lost, and all of a sudden you get upset? It's because you're confused. And then somebody who's in confusion will lash out and go, that stuff's terrible anyway, or it's stupid, or I don't understand it. Great. So one who doesn't understand something will then have a negative viewpoint most of the time towards it out of confusion. So when you look at people who are then trying to tell you that this is not a good investment, or this is not a good move, or Bitcoin's stupid, or MicroStrategy is dumb and it's a scam, you would then test their knowledge of what is Bitcoin. Okay. And the basis of it, if you ever want to explain it to somebody, I can give you a very simple analogy on it. It's like, imagine for a moment that there was only 21 million tickets to the greatest concert on earth, right? Like, imagine the greatest concert on earth put together. There's only 21 million tickets. They're almost sold out, right? There's 19 million sold out. And they're selling like hotcakes every single day. And the demand for the tickets, which is 450 a day right now that's being issued, the demand is 3 times that. Somebody's like, whoa, Pete, there's 3 times the demand for this concert? I got to go to this concert. Who's in the concert? It's the greatest musician on earth. You might not have heard of him before because he's a new musician, but it's the greatest musician on earth. It's Bitcoin. They're like, whoa, I heard about that Bitcoin thing, that Bitcoin musician. Yeah, it's only 21 million tickets. You want to come? Yeah. And you know what? The fact that the tickets are selling out like crazy, the tickets are going to be way more expensive in the future. And you get that, right? Like if you're at the tail end of a concert and like the tickets are almost sold out, like you realize people are going to pay a lot for these tickets. You want to get in? Well, the tickets aren't astronomical, because one day the tickets are going to be 10 times what it is right now. Like the tickets are going for $1, you're going to be 10x one day. So you probably want to get in now, right? Like Bitcoin at 100,000, one day it'll be 1 million, right? Probably want to get in now. Like, yeah, great. Oh, I want tickets. So great. Yeah, let's get a ticket to the hottest show on earth, the hottest concert on earth. That's Bitcoin's supply, 21 million Bitcoin, 21 million tickets, metaphor, right? Second thing is, for somebody to understand it, it's digital money. It has no value. You ever have somebody say that? Hey, I totally get that. Totally understand. That's always the response to somebody who says this to you. Hey, I totally understand, right? That's how you handle somebody, right? Hey, I totally get that. Doesn't mean you agree with them. You don't go, oh, I totally agree with. No, I totally get your point of view. Hey, so do you use Venmo, PayPal, credit cards? Yeah, I use them. It's digital, right? Yeah, I guess it is digital. I mean, do you touch it? Right? Maybe your credit card you touch, right? I got a credit card here. I can touch it, right? But it's digital. PayPal, I don't even touch it. It's just I go online, I send some money. You already have digital money. Okay. The difference between your digital money that you're sending right now back and forth is the dollar. And did you know that like the US for the last 100 years has printed almost 7% more money every year? So it's just very simple. There's a difference between when the supply of something goes up. Imagine if the greatest concert on earth, like there was 21 million tickets only, and then all of a sudden they said, oh no, but there's 23 million. And then they came back to, oh no, actually there's 25 million available. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, there's 30 million tickets available. And you're like, man, I thought there were only 21 million tickets. And all of a sudden they keep telling you there's more and more and more tickets. All of a sudden you're like, hey man, I just bought tickets to the damn concert. I thought there's gonna be 21 million. Now the audience is now 1 billion people in the audience. Well, that's the US dollar, guys. You think you're buying into something that's 21 million tickets and it's going to be like, that's it. There's a value to the dollar. And all of a sudden you wake up one day 100 years later and there's $1 billion or $1 trillion. And you're like, I don't want to go to this concert anymore. Well, that's the US dollar. Nobody wants to go to the concert anymore. They want to use it. They want to pay things with it. They don't want to store it. It's not the concert they want to go to. They don't want to be in the audience with 1 trillion people. They want to be with the 21 million, right? The greatest concert on earth. All right? Because there's only 21 million. And you don't want to miss the greatest show. So people get it, right? They get it. They get digital forms of payment. Yeah. So that's what, but how does Bitcoin? It has no value. It has no value. I don't get it. It doesn't have, there's no value for it whatsoever. It was just invented. Well, great. I mean, so is your dollar. It was just invented. It's not backed by anything. Well, the dollar's not backed by anything. It's backed by the trust in the US government. That's what your currency is backed by. No, it's backed by gold. No, it's not backed by gold. It was taken off the standard in 1971 with Nixon. It's not backed by anything. So where is the value of your dollar? This is how you handle people on this, right? It's the whole conversation. You can have family members. It's how I got my 80-something-year-old stepfather to invest in Bitcoin, right? So you explain it to people and you go, great. So and you compare data and you go, where is the value in the dollar? Tell me where the value in the dollar is. It's not there. Okay. Well, I'm just going to put my money in bonds. How? When we're printing 7% more money every year, that means that your value of your dollar goes down 7% every year. So unless you're earning 7%, you're getting nowhere, my friend. So where are you going to put your money? They're like, but I don't want to put in some digital crap called Bitcoin, right? I don't know, whatever. There's no value to it. No, it's very simple. Just like use PayPal or use Venmo. You go online and you just buy a digital certificate. Just go on, you get on to, just like you would go on Fidelity and buy something, you get on one of these exchanges, you go and you buy. And then you own a digital certificate. It's basically code, but let's call it a digital certificate. Right? And then a balance shows up, just like in your bank account, just like in your PayPal, a balance shows up. People are like, oh, wow. That's amazing, right? Well, how do I know it's safe? How do I know that Bitcoin's safe, right? Simple. Very simple. It's actually safer than the majority of things out there. Why? Because it can't be falsified. You can't be fraudulent with a Bitcoin transaction. You could all day long, a bank could change their books. They could change their numbers. Anytime they want at their whim, somebody could change their numbers. You wouldn't know because internally they have central control over it. And so they control what they do to their books. They could lie about their books. We've seen it before. Right? We just had massive fines on a couple of years ago on a major investment company because they were fudging the rules. They were fudging the game. So when you go and you buy a Bitcoin, Mr. So-and-so, it's really simple. You buy, and just like, when in your bank, when you open up your bank account, like you ever heard of a ledger? Like you look at your bank account and there's numbers in your bank account. It says, $1,000, $10,000, whatever. Every time you buy a Bitcoin, you buy your digital certificate and it gets stored on what's called a block, which is just a ledger. That's all it is. Call it a digital notebook. So the moment you buy a Bitcoin, it's stored on a digital ledger. That's it. That's what blockchain means. Block means ledger. And you buy it, and then mom buys it, and dad buys it, and Sally buys it, and Sammy buys it, and everybody gets stored on the block, and it can never be changed. Isn't that amazing? Like, did you ever go to an accountant and all of a sudden they mess up your numbers and they mess up your books? These books could never get messed up. The moment the purchase is made, it's immutable, which means you can't fucking change it. You want to talk about transparency? Come on. Humans make errors. People mess up on accounting all the time. Professionals mess up on accounting. You probably had your tax returns messed up. You probably had like errors. You've ever had an error or something messed up in your bank. No, this thing is almost a perfect technology where the moment you buy something, it's stored right there and it can never be changed. And wouldn't you be great that to know that the people who own Bitcoin are the very people that are also validating your purchases? They're called miners. They go out there and they hunt for the Bitcoin out there. And the whole goal of the miner is to fill up a notebook. So they're all competing out there and they got to solve a puzzle that's like a supercomputer. It's like it would take a supercomputer to solve this puzzle. It's so hard and complex to solve this puzzle that they use a supercomputer to solve the puzzle so they can validate the transaction, know that it's not fraudulent, and then fill up the digital ledger called a block, and then add that fucker to the chain called the blockchain, baby. That's what it is. Hence, block fills up with many transactions, chain of many transactions. And that's the blockchain with many supercomputers out there making sure that it's not fraudulent, that it is real, that it is verified, goes on the chain, boom, and it's there forever. Ever. Okay? And then you have these little dudes walking around. I'm just using a metaphor called nodes, right? And the people who run the nodes have a copy in their supercomputer. They have a copy of all the transactions ever made on the blockchain. And there's many different nodes. So if one node gets sick, metaphorically, all the other nodes have the copies of every transaction ever made. You think that's pretty secure? 16 years, never been hacked. You know? What if everything goes down? What if we get hacked? What if there's a cyber attack? What if AI then attacks everything? If AI then attacks everything, you have a bigger concern. Your governments are going to go down. All your financial institutions are going to go down. Will the blockchain go down? Maybe. Right? But you got a bigger problem, right? So that's what when you're buying into Bitcoin, that's what you're buying. And you're buying into scarcity, the most scarce asset on the planet. So what do you think about that, dad or mom or whoever you're talking to? So if you're armed with that type of knowledge, because listen, if you believe in Bitcoin, I believe it's our responsibility. If you believe it is the most sound money on the planet, and it is one of the most sound vehicles on the planet, I think we all have a responsibility to educate people. And to educate people, you got to put it in fifth grade terms, and you got to explain to them, and you have to be able to counter their misinformation. And here's the other thing to know. Because the financial world is so complex, and I believe it's designed to be complex on purpose, and because there's so many other things, like if you think about the number of ways that people invent, and it's part of the beauty of the innovation of the capitalism in the United States and innovation across the world in different countries, is the beauty to dream up new things and do new things that create new opportunity. I love it, right? But when you got a derivative of a derivative, which means another form of 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 a thing, and it becomes so complex for the US public to understand, why don't you just buy the pure thing, Bitcoin? Right? That's what I would say to people. There isn't complexity to it. There's 21 million. It's backed up by a strong computer network. There will never be more than 21 million. A protocol runs it, so you're not going to be based on human error or somebody fudging or lying on the books. And at the end of the day, just like the dollar, it's not backed by anything except the confidence of the fact that it is finite, and the dollar, they keep printing every year more money. So where are you going to store your money long term? It's a simple thing once you get the concept. And there's going to be new things that come out, and we're going to create an ETF because people want to figure out new ways to make money, which is great. Okay. So there's going to be new things that come out that are other forms, right? Other forms of Bitcoin. Like there's going to be an ETF now with Bitcoin and Ethereum in it. Great. It's another form, but then it makes it more complex for the US public to go, then what is Ethereum? You know? And so you have this whole chain of like, if you don't understand the basic behind it, which is why it's cryptocurrency is actually exploding and taking out, and there's all these new things, the basic of it is Bitcoin. So if one doesn't understand Bitcoin, they're going to be misunderstood in the entire subject of cryptocurrency. And so all these forms that are coming out with the ETFs and then the new thing, somebody's going to come out with another Bitcoin ETF that is Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum. And it's all things. It's kind of equivalent to like, in an S&P 500 where we got some of the top 500 stocks in there, right? Or the NASDAQ that mirrors some of the top 100 stocks, right? You bundle a bunch of these things together so that people can do asset allocation. But one who understands Bitcoin and has the basic understanding will kind of to some degree ignore these products out in the marketplace and go, hey, I'm in Bitcoin, right? That's my belief on it. And then as I look at other things like Microstrategy, sure. Do I like what Saylor's doing? Yeah, because he's applying a principle of intelligent leverage. That's it. It's been around for 100, 200 years. He's leveraging dollars to buy Bitcoin. Simple. If you understand what the company's doing, it's not complex at all. That's it. A regular consumer can take their dollar and buy Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, because he's a large company, he buys Bitcoin. He borrows money, buys Bitcoin. He can issue shares like any company can and buy Bitcoin. End of story. It's not complex. It's not. So when I look at these two things that I understand, and I look at things that I want to invest in that I understand, why would I start throwing my money into different things like, hey, you can invest in this index fund over here that has 42 different companies in that I know nothing about? I just think that the S&P is for people that have no control of their financial future and they don't understand. I'm not going to put my money in the S&P. Are you kidding me? And get 14% a year? What do I like treading water? No, when I swim, I like to go a distance. I don't like treading water in one place. It's no fun to swim when you tread water. Eventually, you know what happens when you tread water for too long swimming? I'm treading water. You sink to the bottom of the ocean. Most people are treading water with their investments. It's literally why I'm taking my life insurance policy and emptying out all the freaking cash and putting it into things that I can control. Was it a good idea years ago? Because I was in the life insurance business. Did I think it was a good idea at the time? Yeah, when I was sold the bill of goods that, hey, 10% on your money over time is a good deal. 10% over time in the stock market, that's a good deal. Like if you do 10% over the long run, that's a good deal. It's the worst deal on the face of the planet. Period. It is. I would never do that deal again. Okay. And insurance is worse. You're not getting 10% in insurance policy. So it's like, it's the worst deal on the face of the planet in terms of like buying into the idea that I can only get 10% on my money over 10 years. I think it's BS. And I think it was marketed by financial institutions who said, hey, we'll put it out there and we'll tell the public that 10% is really good. Even though we know that we're printing 7% more money every year, even though that we're going to take out a 1% management fee. And so now it's automatically 8%. You're negative. With a 10% return, you just made 2%. And that's in a good year of money printing. So what are you going to do? Here's what you're going to do. Okay. Not financial advice, educational advice. You're going to get educated, right? And you're going to, and if you already know what you do, which is why you're here, you're going to get your family educated on this stuff. You're going to get kids educated on this stuff. I'm not saying buying, I'm just saying educated. Because it's like there's a new sheriff in town, right? New sheriff in town, right? And it's called Bitcoin. And it's the new economy. And any digital technology that came before where people didn't believe it, whether it was Netflix, who eventually put Blockbuster out of business, okay, whether it was the internet when people didn't believe, what's this internet thing? How am I going to send stuff through thin air? I'm going to send a letter. I send a letter. I'm going to send a letter so I know the thing's going to actually get there. What do you think? I'm an idiot? I'm going to send something through thin air? What do you think? I'm stupid? All of a sudden, you send stuff through thin air now. So the idea that one would not understand Bitcoin is only because it's new. And if you give them the concepts of what's real to them that they do understand, like email, did you believe it was a real thing when it came out? Talking through Zoom, did you think that you were going to be able to transport like I'm doing into your living room right now? And if you were to tell people 20 years ago you're going to transport into somebody's living room, you think they'd believe you? So when you explain to people, you just explain into those terms. They go, yeah, you're right. Maybe this is something I should look at. So that's the gist. So I think we all have a financial responsibility to educate people, not so they can invest, just so they can get educated, because everybody's got a different risk tolerance. They got a different time horizon. They have a different age. They got a different financial position. They got different belief systems. They got different families. They got different everything. So like one only makes the decision based on their own personal customized choice of what they think is good for them. But that doesn't mean that everybody on the face of the planet shouldn't get the education and knowledge about this. They should, because the people who don't will be left behind. And even if older people today don't care about it, they care about their grandkids. They care about the future of the planet, you know? And so it's each person's responsibility on the face of this planet to understand what is Bitcoin. Because not to understand it, I believe, is actually irresponsible. Because it is here, it is the future, and it is the store of value and the primary store of value that will continue to be, or it will be the primary store of value in the future. All right. So I hope this serves you. Again, it's always fun to do this because I enjoy it and I love it and it's a passion, and I hope it serves you with whatever your future is on this. And again, not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice. It's just, me just sharing my opinion and trying to help out. Any opinions on earnings this Wednesday? Yeah, Russ, I'm not sure on earnings this Wednesday. Anytime I look at stuff, I just like to look at the long-term horizon of like, what's my horizon on it? And I just stick to my conviction of the next 6 to 7 months are going to be a rocket ride. And that means the rocket will go up and slam down and go up and slam down and up and slam down. But eventually in 6 months, it'll end up high, and then we'll have a correction and it'll go boom, it'll crash. How much it'll crash by, I don't know. But I think eventually at the end of when the bear market typically hits, we will see some drop. Okay. So, but until then, I'm going to ride this baby up and have fun with it. It only takes allocating money to buy Bitcoin through these ETFs. Nothing beats holding on a cold wallet. Yeah, Josh, I guess you'll hold on a cold wallet. Yeah, I totally get that. I understand. Yeah, and I do concur with your point, Josh. As long as people believe in the premium, Sailor will print. Yeah, those of us who understand what he's doing, when he taps the ATM, it's good. It's good for MicroStrategy because it gets us more Bitcoin per share. And I know there's varying degrees of opinions on that, because people are like, man, it dilutes the shares. Yeah, but the accretion of the stock is more than the dilution of the shares. That's really all you need to know. So the accretion of MicroStrategy, it goes up by more than the shares get diluted. And that's as simple as it is. So if he's going to dilute the shares a little bit, but the stock is going to go way up, which is the plan, and it's what's been taking place over the last 2024. If you look at the general outlook of 2024, which to actually make smart decisions, you got to look at the longer term time horizon. You can see that MicroStrategy stock went way up compared to the dilution. And that's why it wins, because Michael Saylor's play is it will continue to go up by more than the shares are being diluted by. It's just basic math. Okay. Oh, I love it, Josh. Since 2015, you're an animal. Way to go, pre 1K per Bitcoin. That's incredible, man. That's in way earlier than me. My first buy was 3,000, so super well done. And I think you're awesome for doing that. And I think it's wonderful to acknowledge the people that have been in this for a long time, because it's through the conviction and the belief and the understanding of what this is that people have held strong. And it's people who hold strong and continue to instill the confidence that that actually allow this thing to persist. Because if Bitcoin wasn't backed by people's confidence, then it wouldn't continue to persist into the future. If the US dollar was not backed by our confidence in the government in the US, it wouldn't continue to persist in the future, because it's just dollars being printed. So we have some belief in our government and some belief in the dollar, which is why the US dollar continues to remain strong. But you look at other currencies around the world, and there's many currencies that are struggling big time. I mean, you look at Argentina, and they've had years of 60 to 100% inflation. Could you imagine all of a sudden next year going into the supermarket and now you're paying twice as much for things, or a car that's now twice as much? Wild, right? So it continues to remain that the people like you and me have a big role in the future of this. And it's us continuing to get educated and be confident, because one who has knowledge then has confidence. And even when we see these drops, my friends, like last night, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm like, oh my God, it dropped. Nobody likes to see the 10%, because in your mind, there's always that scenario. Wow, it dropped to 92. Could we go back down to 88? And then you see people who show the charts like, oh, it could go back down to 78. Like if we break through 92, then we go to 88, then we go down to 70s. In your mind, could you always have that possible scenario? Yeah. And could you live in the fear and the fright that that could happen? Yes. And could it happen? Yes. But if you have knowledge and you have understanding of where Bitcoin is going in 2025, because you understand the asset, and then you also look at what you think MicroStrategy is going to do, when you have the dips, you have a stronger confidence because you have more time in the asset and more education on the asset. And because you have the knowledge, you have greater control over your decisions and you don't freak out. Okay. Anybody who's ever traded before knows that the trading can be a freak out game. Because trading involves a lot of emotion, right? And no matter how much you say you're going to analyze data, so many people, including myself, violate trades and take big freaking mistakes in doing it, which is why 96% or 97% of my portfolio is all long-term investing. And I mess around and I trade with a little bit because I like to have a game. But trading and without data and investing without data would make one more fearful, more reactive, more emotional about something. And you don't want to get emotional at all in your decision-making at all, right? Is there a time and place to be excited as hell and have fun and celebrate the wins? All the time. Like, this should be fun. But in terms of like investing, it's data, it's knowing. It's like knowing. My number one senior thing that guides me is knowing. And I can tell you, listen to your knowing based on the data that you know, because I don't care how expert somebody is or how great they are. Anytime I take on somebody else's opinion versus my own, it's typically a loser. Because my knowing, based on my knowing and my data, and then what I originate to be real for me, that leads to decisions and actions for me, tend to be right the majority of the time. And even if I'm listening to an expert, which is why you should get educated and get data from experts, but you shouldn't listen to them based on their investment decisions. I would not listen to me based on what I do. If I were you, I would get data from me. I would get an opinion from me. I would get other opinions of other people in the marketplace. And then I would know something about the area. I would have lots of data about the area, which would give me more control about the area. And then based on my knowing, I would make decisions based on my knowing, my data, and data that I get from others, and then I would put it into action. But I would let my knowing guide the data. Make sense? Otherwise, it becomes somebody else's point of view that I'm implementing versus my point of view. And the only point of view that I'm interested in implementing in my life is my point of view. Okay? Hope it serves you. See you guys on the other side, and talk soon.